my name's Evan Atkinson, and I am answering the Module 3 discussion questions. So, starting with number 1, explain the differences between RTI and MTSS. RTI is response to intervention, which is all about how we adjust based upon initial instruction, whereas MTSS is multi-tiered system of supports, and that's all about the whole child, which is what I gained from Dr. Ortlieb's video. And specifically, his definition is an education for MTSS is an educationally equitable framework characterized by a continuum of evidence-based practices for academics, behavior, and social emotional development. So pretty much it's evidence-based, which means there's been advanced research to prove that it works a lot, and it's all about the whole child, which what that means is it's not just solely academics, it's the whole child. So academics, their behavior in the classroom, how they are socially and emotionally. So that's really the big difference between RTI and MTSS. From looking at my notes that I took on Dr. Ortlieb's video, and then also the other video about the tiered assignments, and then the quick article on MTSS, I'll start with the article, just because that was the shortest one. So what I gained from that article is the main mission of multi-tiered systems of supports, which the mission is to use the MTSS framework to improve instruction so that all students graduate college and are career ready. And I know it says graduate college and career ready, but I think it's more of or career ready or college, because as a special education teacher, my students, they don't go to college. Some have the option to go to Trident and do some kind of very specific degree or certificate with something along those lines. So a few of them can do that, just depending on how they learn and that kind of thing. But really what stood out to me with the mission of MTSS is career ready. So preparing our students for life right after high school, making sure they're prepared to work, and they have been on it about getting prepared, and really just, it's the real world. It's no more high school. Like a lot of my students, their whole life, their whole routine is get up, go to school, get up, go to school, get up, go to school, whereas they need to be career ready. They need to be ready to work. So that's really what I gained from the article. And then jumping back to Dr. Ortlieb's video, he started off with some facts or fibs, which I liked, took notes on that. The most important one was about the whole child. So it is not true, it's a fib, that MTSS only addresses academic performance. That is a fib. Whereas MTSS really is all about the whole child. So social, emotional, behavior in the classroom, and academics. One thing that I took notes on, and I totally agree with, is that MTSS puts a greater emphasis on prevention than intervention. I agreed with that. And also I took note of when Dr. Ortlieb said, when instruction is solid, it cuts down on the need for intervention, which I see every day. Like when I've got my PowerPoint slides ready to a T, I've got lots of backup assignments or activities just in case I run quickly through a lesson. If I have something prepared daily, the behaviors and disruptions, they significantly decrease in my classroom. Whereas if I don't have structure and I don't have good instruction for the entire class period, it can get crazy. So I definitely agreed with that. When instruction is solid, it cuts down on intervention and behavior. So I agreed with that. I also took note on the video where teachers need to meet students where they are and have appropriate expectations. So I thought about that. I paired that to just progress monitoring, for example. If I have a student that is let's say he's a freshman, but his reading fluency is at the 5th grade level, I'm not just going to give him a ninth grade probe. That just doesn't make sense. I need to meet him where he is and go from there and set appropriate expectations. So I wrote that down just because I think that's important. Because stressing them out and giving them something that's inappropriate is just a waste of time, and it's going to create issues. So really just meeting the student where they are can avoid a lot of trouble. Let's see here. So the framework, the multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, that's all about universal screening, core curriculum for all students, with tiered supports for the unique needs of each student. So towards the third tier, it's more individualized, and that's specific to the situation of the student. Also, MTSS has to do with data-informed decision-making and problem-solving, high-quality instruction, and being purposeful and intentional. Everything needs to be intentional. Alrighty, moving right along. Getting into the specific tiers of MTSS, there are 3 tiers. I'll start with Tier 1. Tier 1 is that universal support, okay? It's effective if at least 80% are meeting those benchmarks. And the goals for Tier 1 is just, what do we expect? What do we expect the students to learn? 2, how are we going to know if they've learned it? 3, how are we going to respond when students do not meet those goals, they don't make progress, or maybe they've already mastered the content? All right, moving up to Tier 2. That's supplemental and targeted supports. So that's effective if at least 70 to 80% of students improve performance. So where are students performing now? That's the focus. Where do we want them to be? How long do we have for them to get there? How much do we want them to grow per year or monthly? And then what resources are going to make them move at that rate? And then lastly, Tier 3, this is intensive to the individualized supports. So it's specific to the situation. So we just need to see if this is effective towards the progress and their benchmarks and their progress monitoring goals. So where are they performing now? Where do we want him or her to be? How long do we have to get there? What supports have they received? And what resources will motivate the student? Motivation is key. So just tying this into when I teach. If I have a student, for example, that is very into cars, he's all about cars, maybe he loves NASCAR, monster trucks, whatever, I'm going to give him instruction, and I'm going to meet his needs, his specific needs. So for example, if we're working on building reading comprehension, for example, reading comprehension, I'm going to try and find a story that has to do with cars. That will motivate him to listen and take it all in. Because if I give him something that he doesn't care about, he's not going to really be motivated to want to improve. And just specifically with progress monitoring, in my district, we used Ames Web Plus, which is, we use it for reading and math. So there's tons and tons of probes. I enjoy Ames Web Plus because it's easy to see where they are and go from there. So like tons and tons of, for example, sticking with reading comprehension, I'll find a story that has to do with monster trucks or cars or whatever it is that I know the student enjoys, and that'll motivate them to improve the skill that we're working on, whether it's reading comprehension, reading fluency, math reasoning, writing, whatever it is. All right, let's see here. Another key point that I took note of in Dr. Ortlieb's video is, what can we start doing today? So all about leadership. You need to form a team, get an MTSS team together, and go from there. Start discussing ideas and how we can improve the students' abilities. Increase collaboration. That kind of goes hand in hand with leadership. Like, get a team together, get the student, and just talk and collaborate and bounce ideas off of each other. Whole child. So it's not just academics. It's not just behaviors in the classroom. It's everything. it's academics, it's behaviors, it's social emotional, it's all of it, whole child. And then review data. Talk about where they are, where we want them to be. Just review data constantly. You should know that data and you should meet the needs of the student at their level. Don't set inappropriate goals that will just do more harm than good. All right. So, that's all I have to say, I believe, for Dr. Ortlieb's video. I believe so. And then getting into the other video, it was shorter. It was about the assignments, the tiered assignments. So I liked his video just because it aligns with a lot of what I do in my classroom, just because I have a wide range of abilities in my room. Like, for example, I teach high school students with special needs. So I have students that some of them don't know sight words. They have to review words like my and this, where. They need that constant review and practice. But then I have other students that they can read extremely fast. They can read extremely fast, but if you ask them what they read or if you ask them a question, they can't answer it. So it's just a wide range of disabilities, and it's very specific. It's very individualized in my room, is what I'll say. So I really liked his video because he pretty much talked about different assignments and activities and how to make them individualized to the student. So for example, he was talking about like a story map. So he'll use maybe like a worksheet for one group of students that will work for a lot of the students. But then maybe for some students that doesn't work for them, he would find a similar activity that goes hand in hand with what he's teaching, but it might be broken down into smaller pieces. So I enjoyed what he had to say, just because it's something that I do daily. I have to prepare, and all about that. It ties into universal design for learning, just trying to meet all of the students, and it's not just a general vague, oh, I'm going to try and get a lot of students to understand this. It's trying to meet the needs of every single student, making it universal. So one thing I'll say also, last thing about his video, we used to in my district use Unique. Unique was a program that was interactive, it was online, and I loved it. It was so great. It was I used it for almost every single subject area. And for example, if I was using it for an ELA lesson, it would be like a story. Like, I just remember a story. One of the stories was about the Great Migration in East Africa, and the story it said like regular reading, advanced reading, and then simplified reading. So it would be great because I would pull my students in maybe one group for small group instruction. It would be the advanced. It'd be the advanced reading. It would have bigger vocabulary. It would be a longer story. It would have more complex questions. But then maybe for my struggling readers, I would pull the simplified version, and we talk as a small group, and we talk about the story, and there would be questions that we'd answer together. It was a much shorter story. It was broken down. So that ties hand in hand with what he had to say about tiered assignments. So that's all I'll say on that. Okay. Question 2 of the discussion. Okay, as an admin, how would you plan a master schedule to address the tiers? So what time of day would I pull the students for intervention and acceleration? Okay, so for me, I would pull them at the beginning of class. So like, just tying this into how I teach. I usually start with like a bell ringer or some kind of activity. Just as soon as they come into class, they know the expectation, they know what they're doing. A lot of times it's on their device. Sometimes it can be paper. Sometimes it's just a discussion with your seatmates. So I would have the kids come in, and then while the kids are doing their bell work or bell ringer warm-up, I would pull. So I would pull those students for intervention, whether it's behavior, working on getting those behavior minutes in, or maybe it's for building those comprehension skills. So maybe while the kids are doing their morning work on their computer, or watching a video, or whether it's maybe it's a quick YouTube video, just like a brief overview of what we're going to get into in class today. While they're doing that, I could be pulling the students, and we could be improving whatever we're working on that day. So if it's behavior intervention, then maybe I would do a lesson on bullying, or maybe it's a social emotional lesson where we talk about how to handle a specific scenario, and what not to do, what to do. So I think for what time of day, I think I'd do it in the morning, just because that's how I do it now. Just because my students know the expectation, they know when I pull, they know the routine, they know the procedure. So I would stick with that. So I believe I answered that question, but you can always let me know if I need to get more into that. But just that's what I do now, and this is only my second year teaching, but it works for me. It works for my room. So just pulling them right away first thing in the morning, getting those minutes in. I love small group. And then maybe after I pull them in the morning, after I do the small group, and then as a class, we could have like a very quick 3-minute discussion of like an overview of what we talked about, what kind of good conversations we had, that kind of thing. But I think that's what I would do. That's how I would pull for intervention and acceleration. All right, well, that's all I have to say about the 2 videos and the article. And I enjoyed this, and it's something that it all ties together, along with the Universal Design for Learning, RTI, MTSS. It's all evidence-based. It's what works. It's proven, and I definitely think that we should make a greater effort to implement these things into the classroom.